October 14, 1993. 11:47 p.m. The fluorescent lights of the Waikiki Hotel lobby cast everything in harsh, clinical white. Outside, the parking lot sits empty except for a single vehicle, a modest Toyota Camry, pale blue under the sulfur glow of street lamps. The ocean breeze carries salt and exhaust across the asphalt, palm fronds rustling in the darkness. Sarah Mitchell walks toward her car, keys jangling in her hand. 28 years old. Blonde hair pulled back. Tired from an 8-hour shift at the front desk. She's thinking about tomorrow, about the conversation she needs to have with management, about the missing money she noticed in the cash drawer, about doing the right thing. She slides her key into the driver's side door, unlocks it, gets in, turns the ignition. Nothing. She tries again. The engine clicks, sputters, dies. Nothing. The dashboard stays dark. Sarah Mitchell would never make it home that night. Her car wouldn't start because someone made sure it wouldn't. Someone who knew she'd be alone. Someone who knew exactly what she discovered. Someone who was watching from the shadows, waiting. Before we go further, if you're captivated by cases like this, hit that subscribe button. And drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. This story needs to be heard worldwide. To understand what was stolen that night, you need to know who Sarah Mitchell was. She wasn't from Hawaii. Sarah grew up in Eugene, Oregon, rain-soaked forests, mountain air, a childhood spent hiking with her younger sister Rachel. Their parents ran a small bookstore downtown. Sarah was the dreamer, the adventurer. Rachel remembered her sister always with a map spread across her bedroom floor, finger-tracing coastlines, circling islands in the Pacific. After high school, Sarah worked her way through community college, saved every dollar, and at 25, she finally did it. She bought a one-way ticket to Honolulu, paradise. The dream she'd been chasing since childhood. She wasn't chasing parties or tourist glamour. Sarah wanted to build something real. She worked 2 jobs, front desk at the Waikiki Royal Hotel and weekends at a small bookstore in Kaimuki, an echo of her parents' shop back home. She lived in a modest studio apartment in Waikiki, her walls covered with photos of Oregon forests and Hawaiian beaches. 2 worlds she was trying to blend into one life. Her sister Rachel spoke to her every Sunday. She'd tell me about saving for a bed and breakfast, Rachel would later recall, her voice breaking. She wanted it on the North Shore. She could describe every detail, the wraparound porch, the plumeria trees in the yard, the sunrise view from the kitchen. She was so close. Sarah was kind. Coworkers described her as the person who remembered your birthday, who covered your shift when your kid was sick, who always had quarters for the vending machine. She'd been in Honolulu for 3 years by October 1993. She'd made friends, built a community, started to feel like the islands were home. She loved early morning beach walks before work. She collected seashells and sent them to Rachel with handwritten postcards. She volunteered at a literacy program teaching English to immigrant workers. She was learning to surf. She was terrible at it, but she kept trying. She was 28 years old, and her life was just beginning. But someone at that hotel knew something Sarah didn't. Someone she trusted, someone she worked alongside, someone who seemed normal. And that someone was about to make sure Sarah Mitchell never filed that report about the missing cash. What Sarah had discovered would cost her everything. Let's reconstruct the final hours. Every minute matters. Sarah Mitchell clocked in at the Waikiki Royal Hotel at 3:15 p.m. that Thursday afternoon. The shift was standard: check-ins, check-outs, answering phones, handling guest complaints about noisy neighbors or broken air conditioning. October in Hawaii meant fewer tourists, a lull before the winter holiday rush. The lobby was quiet. By 6 p.m., most of the day's shift had left. Sarah worked the desk with 2 other employees, a bellhop named Marcus and a maintenance worker named David Chen. Chen had been with the hotel for 8 months. Quiet guy. Kept to himself. Did his job. Nothing memorable about him, really. That's what people would say later. Forgettable. Around 8:30 p.m., Sarah began closing out the cash drawer for the shift change. That's when she noticed it. The numbers didn't match. Cash was missing. Not a huge amount, maybe $200, but enough that it couldn't be a simple mistake. She counted again. still short. A housekeeper named Leilani was restocking towels in the lobby closet. She remembered seeing Sarah frown, pull out a small notebook, start writing. She looked troubled, Leilani told police later. Like she was trying to figure something out. She kept glancing at the schedule on the wall. At 9:45 p.m., David Chen approached the front desk. He told Sarah he wasn't feeling well, headache, maybe the flu. He asked if he could leave early. Sarah checked with the night manager, who approved it. Chen clocked out at 10 p.m. He left through the front entrance. Security footage shows him walking to his truck in the parking lot. Driving away. Except he didn't drive away. Not far, anyway. At 10:15 p.m., Sarah made a phone call from the front desk. Phone records would later show she called her apartment. Left herself a reminder to talk to Robert in the morning. Robert was Robert Kahale, the hotel's general manager. But what? She didn't say on the message. But investigators would piece it together later. The cash discrepancies had been happening for weeks. Sarah had been keeping track. And that night, she'd finally connected them to David Chen's shifts. By 11 p.m., the hotel had gone quiet. The night auditor arrived to take over the desk. Sarah gathered her purse, her notebook with the cash records inside, her car keys. She said goodnight to Marcus, who was handling late luggage deliveries. At 11:47 p.m., security cameras captured Sarah Mitchell walking through the side employee exit into the parking lot. Straight toward her car. The camera angle cut off at the edge of the lot, right past the driver's side of her Camry. She reached her car. Unlocked it. Got in. And then the world went dark. Not for the cameras. For Sarah. When Sarah Mitchell didn't come home that night, her roommate wasn't immediately worried. Sarah sometimes crashed at a friend's place after late shifts. But by noon the next day, Friday, October 15th, when Sarah still hadn't appeared and wasn't answering calls, concern turned to alarm. At 2:30 p.m., Rachel Mitchell received a call in Oregon. Sarah's roommate was frantic. Have you heard from her? She never came home. This isn't like her. Rachel's stomach dropped. She immediately called the Honolulu Police Department. Missing person report filed at 3:15 p.m. By 4 p.m., officers arrived at the Waikiki Royal Hotel. And that's when they found it. Sarah's car. Still in the parking lot. Still in the same spot where she'd parked it the night before. The driver's side door was unlocked. Her purse sat on the passenger seat, wallet inside, cash untouched, ID still there. Her keys hung from the ignition. Everything looked normal except for one critical detail. The car wouldn't start. Officer James Kapili tried the ignition himself. Nothing. He popped the hood. The battery cables had been disconnected. Not loosened. Not corroded. Deliberately pulled free. That's when we knew, Detective Kenji Yamamoto would say years later. This wasn't a woman who ran away. This was staged. Someone disabled that car on purpose. Someone who wanted her stranded. Someone who knew she'd be vulnerable. The first 48 hours of a missing person investigation are critical. Detectives moved fast. Hotel staff was interviewed. Marcus the bellhop confirmed Sarah had left around 11:45 p.m. The night auditor confirmed she'd seemed normal, maybe tired. No distress. No indication anything was wrong. Security footage was reviewed. Grainy, black and white, typical for 1993. The cameras showed Sarah walking to her car. Getting in. Then, nothing. The angle didn't capture what happened next. No struggle visible. No other person on camera. Just Sarah, alone, climbing into her car and disappearing. David Chen was brought in for questioning on Saturday, October 16th. He explained he'd left early with a headache, drove home, went to bed. His roommate confirmed the timeline. Chen had been home by 10:30 p.m., complaining of feeling sick. Detective Yamamoto pressed him about the cash discrepancies. Chen looked confused. What discrepancies? I don't handle money. I'm maintenance. No evidence connected him to the scene. No forensic traces. No witnesses placing him anywhere near Sarah's car. The interview lasted 2 hours. Chen was cooperative, nervous but not evasive. He asked if Sarah was okay, said he hoped they'd find her. He seemed concerned. They let him go. Search parties formed over the weekend. Volunteers combed Waikiki Beach, hiking trails in the mountains, alleyways behind the hotel. Hundreds of people turned out. Flyers with Sarah's photo, her bright smile, blonde hair, that Oregon hiking photo she loved, were plastered on telephone poles across Honolulu. By Monday, October 18th, the local news had picked up the story. Hotel worker vanishes. Sarah's face appeared on evening broadcasts. Tips began flooding the police station. None of them led anywhere. Sarah Mitchell had simply vanished. And someone had made sure her car wouldn't take her to safety. The disappearance of Sarah Mitchell sent shockwaves through Honolulu, especially in the tight-knit community around Waikiki. Hawaii prided itself on being paradise, safe, welcoming, a place where people left doors unlocked and neighbors became family. But Sarah's case shattered that illusion. A young woman vanishes from a hotel parking lot in one of the most trafficked tourist areas in the state? It didn't compute. Fear spread through the hotel industry first. Workers at the Waikiki Royal Hotel began requesting escorts to their cars after evening shifts. Women who'd walked alone for years suddenly looked over their shoulders. Management installed additional security lights in the parking lot. Too late for Sarah, but panic demanded action. Local news coverage intensified. By late October, Sarah's case was the lead story every night. Her sister Rachel flew to Honolulu, face gaunt with grief, pleading on camera, "Someone knows something. Please. If you saw anything, heard anything, my sister needs to come home." The community responded. Candlelight vigils formed on Waikiki Beach, dozens of people holding photos of Sarah, singing songs, praying. Strangers mourned a woman they'd never met. That's what happens when evil invades paradise. Everyone feels the violation personally. But alongside grief came whispers. Theories. Gossip. Maybe she ran away. Maybe she had a secret boyfriend. Maybe she owed money. People whispered that Sarah had seemed distracted lately, stressed. Maybe she'd chosen to disappear. Rachel Mitchell pushed back hard against those rumors. "My sister was happy. She was building a life here. She didn't run away. Someone took her." Hotel employees started talking among themselves, quiet conversations in break rooms. Some mentioned David Chin. How he'd left early that night. How he'd seemed jumpy in the days after Sarah vanished. How he'd called in sick for 3 straight days following her disappearance. One housekeeper told police she'd seen Chin and Sarah arguing a week before she vanished. Chin vehemently denied it. "We barely talked. I didn't know her." Another coworker mentioned Chin had been written up months earlier for clocking in a friend who hadn't shown up for work, a violation of hotel policy. Small stuff. Nothing that screamed, murderer. Detective Yamamoto circled Chin's name in his case notebook. Drew stars around it. But suspicion isn't evidence. And without evidence, there's nothing to charge. By November 1993, the case was still active, still being investigated. But the initial momentum had stalled. No body. No witnesses. No forensic breakthrough. Sarah Mitchell was gone. And the person responsible was still out there, walking free, going about their daily life as if nothing had happened. The community held its breath. Waiting. Hoping. The wait would last decades. Detective Kenji Yamamoto had worked Honolulu homicide for 15 years when Sarah Mitchell's case landed on his desk. He'd seen everything: domestic murders, gang violence, robbery gone wrong. But missing persons cases haunted him differently. No body meant no closure. No answers. Just an endless, gnawing question mark. From day one, Yamamoto treated Sarah's disappearance as a homicide. The disabled car was too deliberate. This wasn't random. His partner, Detective Linda Torres, agreed. "Someone planned this," she said, studying the crime scene photos. "They knew her routine. Knew she'd be alone. Knew exactly how to trap her. They built a timeline. Reconstructed Sarah's last day minute by minute. Interviewed every hotel employee, every guest checked in that week, every vendor who'd delivered supplies. They pulled phone records, credit card statements, searched her apartment for clues about secret relationships or hidden debts. Nothing. Sarah's life was exactly what it appeared to be. Simple, honest, focused on work and saving money. That brought them back to David Chin. Yamamoto brought him in for a second interview on November 3, 1993. Different approach this time. More pressure. Tell me about the cash discrepancies at the hotel. Chin shifted in his chair. I don't know anything about that. Sarah Mitchell was tracking missing money. Money that disappeared on nights you were working. I'm maintenance. I don't touch the cash drawer. But you have access to the back office, where the safe is. So does everyone. The interrogation lasted 4 hours. Chen stuck to his story, left early with a headache, went home, roommate confirmed. No connection to Sarah beyond casual workplace acquaintance. Didn't know about any cash problems. Wanted to help find her. Yamamoto pushed harder. Where were you really that night? After you left the hotel? I told you. In bed. My roommates saw me. They verified it. The roommate, a guy named Eric Tanaka, confirmed the timeline. Chen had been home by 10:30 p.m., complained of feeling sick, went to his room. Tanaka had watched TV in the living room until midnight. Chen's truck had been in the driveway all night. Alibi solid. But Yamamoto couldn't shake the feeling. Something about Chen felt wrong. The way he avoided eye contact when talking about Sarah. The way his hands trembled when shown her photo. The way he kept saying, I barely knew her, like a rehearsed line. Forensics examined Chen's truck. No traces of Sarah. No blood. No hair fibers. Nothing. They searched his apartment with his consent. Normal. A maintenance worker's life. Tools, work boots, nothing suspicious. Without physical evidence, without witnesses, without a body, the case couldn't move forward. By December 1993, the investigation had stalled. Detective Yamamoto kept Sarah's case file on his desk. Refused to box it up, refused to move on. His captain told him gently, Kenji, we've got other cases. Active cases. She's still out there, Yamamoto replied. Somewhere. And someone knows where. He'd review the file every week. Reread witness statements. Study crime scene photos. The disabled battery cables. Sarah's purse left behind. The security footage that showed her walking to her car and then, nothing. Yamamoto circled David Chen's name again. And again. And again. I know it's him, he told Torres. I just can't prove it. That's the torture of detective work. Knowing isn't enough. The years after Sarah Mitchell's disappearance became a cruel carousel of hope and devastation. 1994, a woman matching Sarah's description was spotted at a beach in San Diego. Blonde hair, similar height, alone. Police investigated. It wasn't her. The woman was a tourist from Canada, confused why officers were questioning her. 1995. An anonymous tip came in claiming Sarah had been seen working at a restaurant in Mexico City. Rachel Mitchell flew down with Detective Yamamoto. They found the restaurant. The woman working there was Mexican, brunette, 10 years older than Sarah. Someone's idea of a cruel joke. 1997. Remains were discovered in a remote gulch on Maui. Decomposed. The Mitchell family held their breath for 3 agonizing weeks waiting for forensic identification. Wrong age. Wrong dental records. Not Sarah. Relief and disappointment collapsed into each other. 1998. A psychic contacted Honolulu PD claiming to have visions of Sarah buried near a pineapple field on Oahu's north shore. Against their better judgment, investigators followed up. They searched. Found nothing. The psychic insisted she was close, just a few yards off. More searching. Still nothing. 1999. Sarah's ex-boyfriend from Oregon became a person of interest after someone sent an anonymous letter claiming he'd been stalking her. Detectives flew to Eugene, interviewed him extensively. He'd never been to Hawaii. He'd married someone else in 1995. Solid alibi for October 1993. Another dead end. 2001. A construction crew breaking ground for a new development in Kailua unearthed skeletal remains. The media erupted. Rachel Mitchell received the call she'd been dreading and desperately hoping for. Forensic anthropology determined the remains were male, approximately 60 years old at death. Not Sarah. Year after year. False lead after false lead. Detective Yamamoto retired from Honolulu PD in 2002, but he took Sarah's case file home with him. Boxes of documents, photos, evidence logs, interview transcripts. His garage became a makeshift cold case office. His wife would find him there at 2 a.m., reading through statements, studying timelines, still circling David Chen's name. "Kenji, you have to let it go," she'd say gently. "She's someone's daughter. Someone's sister. I can't." New detectives rotated through the case. Each would review the file, conduct a few fresh interviews, pursue new tips. Each would eventually move on to more solvable crimes. Sarah Mitchell's case grew colder. By 2005, the case was officially classified as a cold case. The file was boxed up and moved to a storage facility where hundreds of other unsolved cases waited in silent rows. The active investigation had effectively ended. True crime bloggers occasionally wrote about Sarah. Amateur sleuths on internet forums debated theories. Was it a serial killer passing through Hawaii? A random predator? A crime of opportunity? They traced the evidence, analyzed the timeline, always coming back to the same frustrating conclusion: not enough information. Rachel Mitchell never stopped. She'd fly to Honolulu every October 14th, hold a small memorial on Waikiki Beach, often alone. The media stopped covering it. The crowds had disappeared. But Rachel stood there year after year, holding her sister's photo, refusing to let Sarah become a forgotten statistic. Sarah's parents aged rapidly. Her father developed dementia, would sometimes forget Sarah was missing, would ask when she was visiting from Hawaii. When his wife gently reminded him, he'd break down crying as if hearing the news for the first time. He died in 2003, never knowing what happened to his daughter. The truth seemed buried forever. But the thing about truth, it doesn't stay buried. Guilt has a way of eating through even the strongest walls of silence. And David Chen's walls were beginning to crack. For Sarah Mitchell's family, the years between 2006 and 2018 represented a special kind of torture that psychologists call ambiguous loss. No body, no grave, no funeral, no closure. Rachel Mitchell lived in a perpetual state of frozen hope and crushing despair. Every blonde woman she'd pass on the street triggered a double take. Every phone call from an unknown number sent her heart racing. Maybe this time, maybe today, maybe finally. She developed severe anxiety. Went to therapy. Tried medication. Nothing truly helped because the source of her pain wasn't chemical, it was the absence of answers. How do you grieve someone who might still be alive? How do you move forward when you're forever looking backward? Rachel never married. Friends said she couldn't commit to a future when her past remained unresolved. She worked as a legal secretary in Eugene, lived in the same small house where she and Sarah had grown up. Their childhood bedroom remained untouched, Sarah's hiking boots still in the closet, her collection of seashells on the windowsill, postcards from Hawaii tacked to a corkboard. Their mother declined rapidly after their father's death. The not knowing consumed her. She'd sit for hours looking at Sarah's photos, whispering, "Where are you, baby? Where did you go?" She died in 2011. Heart failure, the doctors said. Rachel knew better. Grief had killed her mother as surely as any disease. Meanwhile, in Honolulu, the Waikiki Royal Hotel had changed ownership twice. Most employees from 1993 had moved on. The parking lot had been repaved. Security cameras upgraded. The physical space where Sarah Mitchell had last been seen bore no trace of that October night. Retired Detective Yamamoto continued his ritual. Every October 14th, he'd drive to the hotel, park in the lot, stand where Sarah's car had been. He'd stay for an hour, sometimes longer, as if bearing witness could somehow make up for failing to solve the case. He'd tracked David Chen over the years. Chen had left the Waikiki Royal Hotel in late 1993, moved to Maui, worked various maintenance jobs. Got married in 1998. Had 2 children. Lived a quiet, unremarkable life. From the outside, Chen appeared to be a normal, functioning member of society. A father. A husband. A regular guy. But inside, David Chen was disintegrating. Guilt is a slow poison. It doesn't kill you quickly. It seeps into your bloodstream, attacks your organs, corrupts your sleep, turns every reflection in the mirror into an accusation. For 25 years, Chen carried Sarah Mitchell's death like a tumor, growing, metastasizing, spreading through every aspect of his life. He'd wake up screaming. His wife would ask what was wrong. Nightmares, he'd say. Always nightmares. He'd see Sarah's face in crowds. Hear her voice in his daughter's laugh. Feel her presence in every dark parking lot. The weight of what he'd done was crushing him. And in 2018, when doctors diagnosed him with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, David Chen realized he was running out of time. The question wasn't whether to confess. It was whether he had the courage. March 12, 2019. 9:23 a.m. A man walked into the Honolulu Police Department headquarters on Baratania Street. Mid-50s. Graying hair. Thin, cancer thin. His hands trembled as he approached the front desk. "I need to speak to someone about the Sarah Mitchell case," he said. His voice barely above a whisper. The desk sergeant looked up. Sarah Mitchell. That name hadn't been mentioned in years. "Who are you?" "My name is David Chen. I worked with her. And I know what happened to her." 20 minutes later, David Chen sat in an interrogation room across from Detective Lisa Kamika, who'd taken over the cold case unit in 2015. She'd reviewed Sarah's file dozens of times. Knew every detail. And now, after 26 years, the man who'd been circled in Detective Yamamoto's notebook was sitting in front of her, ready to talk. "I'm dying," Chen began. "Pancreatic cancer. 6 months, maybe less. And I can't die with this inside me. I can't." Kamika turned on the recording device. "Tell me what happened." Chen's confession spilled out like poison draining from a wound. He'd been stealing from the hotel for months. Small amounts. $20 here, $50 there. Skimming from the cash drawer when he'd help cover the front desk during busy shifts. He thought no one would notice. But Sarah had noticed. On October 14, 1993, Sarah had pulled him aside during their shift. She'd been tracking the discrepancies. She had dates, amounts, a pattern, all pointing to him. She was going to report him the next morning. "I panicked," Chen said, tears streaming down his face. "I had rent due. I had debts. I couldn't lose that job. I couldn't go to jail. So I did something terrible." When Sarah left work that night, Chen had already been in the parking lot. He'd disabled her car earlier in the evening while she was working, pulled the battery cables, made sure she'd be stranded. His plan was simple: wait for her to try starting the car, offer to help, drive her home, and talk her out of reporting him. But promise to pay it back. Whatever it took. But when he approached her car, when she saw him in the darkness, she understood. She knew. She tried to lock the door. Tried to scream. Chen's voice broke. "I grabbed her. I didn't mean to, I just wanted to stop her from screaming. My hands were around her throat and I couldn't stop. And then she wasn't moving anymore." Silence filled the interrogation room. "I put her in my truck. I drove to the Waianae coast. There's a cliff there, remote, no houses." He couldn't finish. Couldn't say the words. But the implication was clear. Sarah Mitchell's body had been disposed of in the ocean, weighted down, lost to the Pacific currents. For 26 years, David Chen had lived with Sarah's murder. He'd gone home that night, showered, burned his clothes, fabricated an alibi with his roommate Eric, who'd been so drunk he barely remembered Chen coming home. He'd married, had children, coached Little League, attended church. And every single night, Sarah Mitchell haunted his dreams. "I'm sorry," Chen whispered. "I'm so sorry. I was a coward. I was scared. And I destroyed her. I destroyed her family. I destroyed myself." Detective Kamika sat back. 26 years. And finally, the truth. David Chen's confession triggered an immediate and massive investigative response. Detective Kamika contacted Rachel Mitchell in Oregon within hours. Rachel collapsed when she heard. Not from shock. She'd always known her sister was dead. But hearing the confirmation, the brutal details, the sheer senselessness of it, Sarah had died over a few $100s and a petty thief's panic. Prosecutors moved swiftly. While Chen had confessed, they needed corroboration. Confessions alone can be challenged in court. They needed evidence. The original 1993 case file was pulled from storage. Every piece of evidence was re-examined with 26 years of technological advancement. DNA analysis that didn't exist in 1993. Enhanced digital forensics. New investigative techniques. Chen's old apartment had long been demolished. His truck from 1993 had been sold and junked years ago. But investigators tracked down Eric Tanaka, the roommate who'd provided Chen's alibi. Tanaka was now 51, living in California, working as an electrician. When detectives showed up at his door asking about October 1993, his face went pale. "I knew something was wrong that night," Tanaka admitted. "David came home late, maybe midnight, not 10:30 like I told police. He was sweating, shaking, looked terrified. He asked me to lie for him. Said he'd been with a married woman and needed an alibi. I was young, stupid. I lied." The alibi that had cleared Chen in 1993 crumbled. Investigators scoured Chen's life after Sarah's murder. Bank records from 1993 showed he'd made a large cash deposit, $1,200, 2 weeks after Sarah vanished. When questioned, Chen admitted it was stolen money from the hotel he'd been too afraid to spend immediately. His work records showed he'd called in sick for 3 days following October 14th, claiming flu. Co-workers from that time were re-interviewed. Several mentioned Chen had seemed different after Sarah disappeared, jumpy, withdrawn, lost weight rapidly. One former co-worker, the housekeeper Leilani, remembered something new. "David came to me a week after Sarah vanished. He asked if police had talked to me, what I'd told them. He seemed desperate to know what people were saying. At the time I thought he was just worried. Now I realize he was scared." Forensic psychologists analyzed Chen's confession. It contained details only Sarah's killer would know, the exact location in the parking lot, the fact that her purse had been left in the car, specific timeline elements that had never been released to the public. Prosecutors built their case. First-degree murder would be difficult to prove. Premeditation required showing Chen planned to kill Sarah, not just disable her car. But second-degree murder and manslaughter were viable charges given his confession and the circumstantial evidence. Meanwhile, search efforts were organized along the Waianae coast. Divers combed the waters. Cadaver dogs searched the cliffs. Sonar equipment scanned the ocean floor. They found nothing. 26 years, ocean currents, marine life. If Sarah's remains were ever there, they were long gone. Detective Kamika contacted retired Detective Yamamoto. He was 73 now, living quietly in Kailua. When she told him about Chen's confession, Yamamoto was silent for a long moment. "I knew it was him," he finally said. "I knew it in 1993. I just couldn't prove it." "You can stop circling his name now," Kamika said gently. David Chen had been a ghost hiding in plain sight. A killer masquerading as a normal man. A father who'd tucked his children into bed with Sarah Mitchell's blood on his conscience. The mask had finally fallen. And the world would see the monster underneath. David Chen was formally arrested on March 15, 2019, and charged with second-degree murder and abuse of a corpse. The media erupted. Cold case solved. Hotel worker confesses to 1993 murder of Sarah Mitchell. The story dominated local news for weeks, made national headlines. After 26 years of silence, the truth was finally public. The Honolulu community reacted with shock and anger. People who'd known Chen, neighbors, fellow church members, parents of his children's friends, struggled to reconcile the quiet, helpful man they knew with the monster who'd murdered Sarah Mitchell. "He coached my son's soccer team," one parent told reporters, voice shaking. "He seemed so normal. How do you not see that?" But that's the reality of evil. It doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it looks like your neighbor, your coworker, the guy who helps you fix your lawnmower. Chen's wife filed for divorce immediately. His adult children refused to speak to him. The life he'd built on Sarah's grave collapsed in days. On July 22, 2019, David Chen appeared in court for sentencing. He'd pleaded guilty to manslaughter and abuse of a corpse as part of a plea agreement. In exchange for his confession and cooperation, prosecutors reduced the charges. He'd receive 20 years. Rachel Mitchell sat in the courtroom, flanked by friends and victim advocates. She'd waited 26 years for this moment. When given the chance to deliver a victim impact statement, Rachel approached the podium. Her voice was steady, but her hands gripped the edges of the wood until her knuckles went white. David Chin, you stole my sister's life. You stole 28 years of her future, the bed and breakfast she'd never open, the family she'd never have, the life she'd been working so hard to build. You stole 26 years from my family. 26 years of questions, of hope turning to despair, of birthdays and holidays and ordinary moments poisoned by her absence. Her voice cracked. My father died never knowing what happened to Sarah. My mother died of a broken heart. I've spent half my life in limbo, unable to grieve, unable to move forward, trapped in the hell you created. She locked eyes with Chen. And even now, you've stolen one final thing from us. You won't tell us exactly where you put her. We can't bring her home. We can't give her a proper burial. We can't visit her grave. You've taken everything, and you still hold that last piece hostage. Chen sobbed in his chair, head in his hands. I hope your cancer is painful, Rachel continued. I hope you suffer. I hope in your final moments, you see my sister's face and you understand what you destroyed. You took her life. But we won't let you erase her memory. Sarah Mitchell mattered. She was loved. She was wanted. And she will never be forgotten. The judge spoke next. Mr. Chin, you had 26 years to come forward. 26 years to give this family peace. You chose your comfort over their closure. That is unforgivable. The sentence, 20 years in state prison. Chin would likely die there. His cancer was aggressive, treatment limited. Doctors gave him months. As marshals led him away, Chen looked back at Rachel. I'm sorry, he mouthed. Rachel turned away. Sorry wasn't enough. It would never be enough. David Chin died in prison on November 3, 2019, 7 months after his arrest. The cancer had spread rapidly. He died alone, estranged from his family, despised by his community, haunted to his last breath by the woman he'd murdered. Some might say death was too easy for him. Others might say his 26 years of living with guilt was punishment enough. Rachel Mitchell had no comment when informed of his death. Sarah Mitchell's case officially closed. But for her family, closure remained elusive. Without remains, there could be no funeral. No grave to visit. No physical place to mourn. Rachel organized a memorial service in Eugene in December 2019, where friends and family gathered to celebrate Sarah's life. They scattered flower petals in the ocean, symbolic of the sister lost to the Pacific waves. Rachel Mitchell became an advocate for missing persons cases. She founded a nonprofit called Sarah's Voice, dedicated to supporting families of cold case victims and funding forensic technology to solve old cases. She turned her decades of pain into purpose. Sarah's case proves that time doesn't erase truth, Rachel said in interviews. Justice might be delayed, but it's not impossible. We can't give up on the missing. We can't forget them. Detective Kamika kept a photo of Sarah Mitchell on her desk, a reminder of why cold cases matter, why persistence matters, why every victim deserves justice no matter how many years pass. Retired Detective Yamamoto visited Rachel when she came to Honolulu for the memorial. They stood together on Waikiki Beach, looking out at the water where Sarah's remains likely still rested. I circled his name in my notebook in 1993, Yamamoto said quietly. I knew. But knowing isn't enough without proof. You never gave up, Rachel replied. That matters. The Waikiki Royal Hotel installed a small plaque in their lobby in 2020, in memory of Sarah Mitchell, 1965 to 1993. Gone but never forgotten. Sarah would have been 58 years old now. She might have opened that bed and breakfast she dreamed about. Might have married, had children, grown old watching Hawaiian sunrises. All the might have been stolen by one man's moment of panic and 26 years of cowardice.